We begin here in Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu will be launching his highly anticipated student loan scheme Thursday. Now, this is, of course, the Access to Higher Education Act 2023, which he signed back in June of 2023, also called the Student Loan Act. Supposed to be interest-free loans at the tertiary level, limited to tuition fees, and repayment is due after a moratorium. So, we've got a special guest joining us from our Abuja studios to jump into this particular act, what to expect. Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, Executive Secretary, Nigeria Education Loan Fund, the NEL Fund. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. So, what can we look forward to on Thursday? How will this rollout work across the universities across the country?
Okay, so first of all, let me say that Thursday is actually not the day, because there's been some corrections that are being made around the launch itself. Having said that, what we look to expect from this is the opportunity for students, applicants, sometime this month to begin to put in their applications to be able to access the loan, which then gives them access, if they are successful, to tertiary institutions in Nigeria to go and study the courses of their choice, which they have been accepted for.
Can you tell us how much will be available to each student? As we understand, it's at the tertiary level and it's tuition. It's supposed to be for tuition.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's supposed to be for institutional fees. So there are lots of fees that get charged once a student is at a tertiary institution. In terms of the amount available, it'll be 100% of whatever the course that they're studying is. So this is for public tertiary institutions, and the objective is to be able to cover the cost of their institutional fees in total.
Is there a database? I guess, how do you qualify? I guess if you are enrolled in the school, that's it. I guess, and the income level as well, the threshold. How do you determine the income level for qualification?
Okay, so, I think one of the things that's clear to everyone here is that income levels are not the easiest things to determine, particularly in the cadre of people that we're trying to target here. What we're doing is actually putting this out and allowing those who want to apply. Those whose income levels we can determine, we of course will. But there are still a lot of families here whose incomes are inconsistent, irregular, and making that determination. We want to start and we want to see, who's going to qualify.
Okay, I think we have a bit of a technical issue there. We'll hopefully get the Executive Secretary of the NEL Fund back. But again, he was just talking about how income levels are a bit difficult to determine in terms of who qualifies for the loan scheme. But I think key point here is that it isn't, in fact, launching on Thursday. There's still a few more things that need to be sorted out. So while we're getting him back in so we can speak to him, once again, this was signed June 12th of 2023. It is, of course, the Access to Higher Education Act, but also known as the Student Loan Act, interest-free loans at the tertiary level. And as he said, this is supposed to be covering fees. So also then limited to tuition fees, and then the repayment is going to be due after a certain moratorium. And a moratorium, of course, being a period of time within which the students are given to pay back that loan. It's been highly anticipated since it was signed last year, and there's been a lot of talk, especially how it's going to assist students. And also, we also want to get into how it is going to be funded, particularly. Okay, so we have him back. Executive Secretary, sorry about that. We lost you for a second there. Can you repeat your answer on the qualifications? You're talking about income levels being hard to determine.
Yes, so what I was saying was that, the law itself says that families who earn above 500,000 naira per annum would not be eligible. Now, clearly, that is not a reasonable proposition given the current climate. So we're looking very closely at that to ensure that, you know, we can actually capture in the process those who earn, you know, more than that, but are still in very difficult situations when it comes to paying institutional fees at tertiary level. So to your question, you know, even if we're able to determine who is earning less than £500,000 naira, and those who are earning above that, it is still, you know, a net that isn't fully finalized. And we're looking at that very closely to ensure that, you know, through guidelines, regulations, and possible amendments to the law itself, we can make this a much more comprehensive, wide coverage law.
Can you just, going back to
wider coverage law.
Fantastic. Going back to my first question, since it's not exactly rolling out Thursday, can you give a time frame of when we can expect it to be rolled out?
Unfortunately, I won't be able to commit to a specific date. Where we are sort of waiting to ensure that all the stakeholders are aligned to make sure that nobody's blindsided, and that we can actually roll this out in a meaningful, comprehensive, wholesome, and sustainable way. So you will forgive me if I don't commit right here and now to the question, but one thing that I will commit to is that this is a well-intended project. The President Bola Ahmed Tinubu means well around this and absolutely wants this rolled out as fast as possible, and we're working very hard to help realize that.
We appreciate your honesty, sir. I mean, yeah, it is a massive project, so of course, definitely you can be forgiven for not committing to a particular rollout date. That's fine. The moratorium, the amount of time given for the students to pay back, is there, I mean, we understand it's supposed to be after NYSC or after they get a job. How's that supposed to work? How long is it?
Okay, so the moratorium. So in terms of when applicants or obligors are absolutely required to start reporting on their financial status, it's 2 years post NYSC. So 2 years post NYSC, there is a requirement to make payments back to the fund if I reiterate, the obligor has a job or has earnings. If for any reason they don't have a job yet, post 2 years after NYSC, or they don't have any earnings otherwise, it basically means that they can't pay. Now, if someone can't pay, you can't compel them to pay, and this is not the spirit of what we're trying to do here. The spirit of this is that if people can pay, they should pay. The other thing I should say is that those who wish to pay early can. So even though the moratorium takes them 2 years post NYSC, if people want to pay early because they've got a job or a windfall of some sort, they can.
All right, well, you've preempted my next question, so I'll just skip it. You've told us what happens if they don't have a job after those 2 years. I want to ask you about how it's going to be funded, and I want to use an example of US President Biden, who just unveiled a $7.3 trillion budget just yesterday. And he has a lot of spending initiatives. He's planning on paying for it using tax increases on corporations and wealthy individuals. So, you know, the corporate tax rate's 21%. He wants to hike it back up to 28%. He also has a minimum tax for 0.01% of the wealthy in America with incomes over $100 million. And that's how he plans to raise revenue. How is this going to be funded, Executive Secretary?
So again, you know, just going back to the law itself, there are a number of different contributions that will be coming from various agencies of government. So the government and in the law has stipulated that organizations like the FIRS, organizations that like the Nigerian Immigration Service, Nigerian Customs Service, would directly remit 1% of their revenues to the fund. There's also some revenues that can be recognized from the share of profits from oil and minerals. And the really interesting thing about this, of course, is that it's not limited to government contributions. So there is room for high net worth individuals, corporations, non-governmental organizations, those, philanthropists, and just general donors to be able to contribute to this fund. If you look at the Malaysian model, it started with government contributions, and today it is entirely funded without government contribution. So if this is managed properly and it's managed well, I believe there's sufficient interest in education from the world at large and from Nigerians in general who would support this. It would make life so much easier for everyone else if people who desire, have the capacity and the will to go and get a tertiary education. It would make life so much easier for the nation, for our global competitiveness, to be able to actually do this. So I think there's a lot of goodwill around, and I think we'll be surprised at what we can get if this is managed properly.
Collaboration is definitely very important. What role will the states play in the implementation?
Well, the NEL Fund is really set up to support students, applicants from all states of the Federation who wish to apply for this loan without fear or favor. So from the perspective of where the applicants come from, every state will be eligible or will be able to apply. In terms of a specific relationship with the states, what we may look to do is to help get the states to help us do some of the sensitization so that people are increasingly aware of the opportunity. NEL Fund will cooperate with anyone who's going to help bring this opportunity to the knowledge of the citizens at national or subnational level.
Final question for you, sir. We just showed the budget allocation for education. It's one of the highest allocations along with defense and health. So there was an increase in the budget allocation for 2024 compared to 2023. But I guess the UNESCO threshold, so it comes out to about almost 6% if you want to approximate. But defense is at 11%, health about 5.1 or so. But UNESCO still says it should be about 15% of the budget, which, is that realistic? What do you make of that threshold?
Okay, so look, UNESCO is obviously looking at best global practice, what works where. I think one of the interesting things about some of these statistics and these benchmarks is that you've got to look at your own situation. There are, there are countries in the world who don't have the sort of banditry and the sort of insurgency that we've experienced in recent years here. And I'm speaking specifically to the comparison that's inferred from the amounts allocated to defense, I think it was, compared to education. I think they go hand in hand, and I think with these things and the management of economies and budgets and things, it's really the sort of things that you balance according to the outcomes you get from the investments or the inputs you make. I think that you've already underlined that this administration has committed far more than previous ones. So I think the commitment there is that education funding is on the rise, and I think that's good news.
Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, the Executive Secretary of the NEL Fund, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us about the rollout of the Education Act. Thank you, Student Loan Act. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.